Hi, good afternoon. My name's Mike Ehrenberg. I'm the CTO for the Finance and Operations applications. I guess I represent the last session before you guys get to go to happy hour. So hopefully it'll be worth it. So this afternoon we're going to talk about the Finance and Operations applications. We start kind of with the picture of our traditional operational workloads across marketing, sales, service, operations, finance, and talent. But there's really so much more. If you were attending other sessions today, one of the things for me is increasingly it's very important to think about the Power Platform as part of the dynamic solution. So you can see in finance and operations, and we'll see it later in this session, the use of Power BI embedded to drive the analytics that we do, the ability to embed Power Apps in the Dynamics 365 experience. And we're doing more and more with that, and we're seeing customers and partners do more and more to extend Dynamics in new and different ways using the Power Platform. Don't think of them as two separate things. Think of them as part of that same toolkit that you can bring together to focus on things. We're going to kind of concentrate on the right-hand side of the picture today because that's the finance and operations section. And the other thing, we have our SMB product, Business Central. That's actually a team that I'm running now. We're incredibly excited about the momentum we're starting to see with Business Central in the cloud. But with that said, we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about it today. And we're really going to, just based on the audience, focus on the enterprise product on finance and operations. So one of the things that we've done, and you saw today, if you were watching Satya's keynote, a demonstration of customer insights. So we've added a whole set of insight applications around customer insights, around product insights, et cetera. And those become sort of natural extensions that sit on and take advantage of starting from the data that's part of Dynamics, but bringing together all kinds of other data to help drive informed decisions. And we'll talk a little bit more about the architecture that's making that possible. In addition, we've started to add a whole set of kind of AI-powered applications. We'll talk today specifically about fraud prevention as one of the ones that extends kind of the commerce workload for us as well as the finance workload. But you're starting to see these pop up across the suite, and we'll drill more into fraud protection later on. And then finally, a whole set of mixed reality applications. And we're seeing incredible things, for example, guides as an extension of core HR because of the amazing stuff it can do for training, as well as remote assist in a number of workloads. And so you'll continue to see us build out these mixed reality applications. Sorry, one click off. And then the one that I skipped over, Forms Pro, is a great tool for doing surveys. And in the operations space, we think that's a really important part of kind of any HR and talent application, that ability to go out and without writing code, build a survey, send it out to the employee base, get the results back, and be able to use Power BI in order to look at those results and see what you've learned. So there's so much stuff, and obviously we can't cover it all today. The key thing for me is just always remember this URL, aka.ms/business apps release notes. Kind of, you'll struggle with how many P's and S's are in there, but bookmark it because that's the place that we publish our release plan, and we're releasing continuously, but the sort of major content comes out in April and October. We will publish the plan generally a few months ahead of that. So we published in June for October. We'll generally release the document, a first draft, in January for April. And if you always go to that website, you can see the past ones and you can see the newest ones. So that's a great place to sort of understand and see what's new and what's coming. Okay, so with all this innovation, we've got some really great results going on in the business. And one of the things that I really wish I could do is tell you the actual numbers, but those are things we don't disclose. So I'm going to kind of tell you things, and you can decide whether they're good news or really good news. The thing that we primarily look at is usage. How many people are using the service every day? And we talk about this term called monthly active users, or MAU. And over the last 12 months, the MAU for our service has gone up over 250%. And so it wasn't a small number a year ago, and now it's 250% more than that number that wasn't small. In the same time period, the number of customers has gone up 100%. And so so it's doubled. And those are great numbers, and we kind of expect that relationship, because in the cloud, and today pretty much 90% of our finance and operations new customers are all cloud. So principally in the cloud, people start in one area, and then as they get deployed, they start rolling out more and more users. So we expect that when we add a customer, that comes with a set of users, and over the period of time that follows, we expect that number of users to grow. And so we always kind of look for this healthy relationship between number of customers going up a lot, but number of users going up more than a lot, right? And so super excited about the growth that we're seeing. If you pay attention to our CFO, Amy Hood's comments when she does the quarterly results, first of all, it's really cool. I've been doing this for about 16 years at Microsoft. It's really cool to have dynamics mentioned in the first paragraph of the CFO's comments about meaningful results for the business. I will tell you that does come with a little bit of extra pressure as well, but the results are meaningful, and the growth numbers are really a strong part of what she calls out as helping drive the enterprise growth for Microsoft in the cloud. We'll take a slightly different view and kind of look just focusing on the retail product and take a look at some of the numbers around retail. And we're pretty close to 10 million transaction checkouts per month processed through Dynamics 365 Retail. So across all the customers running in our cloud, close to 10 million checkouts per month. And there are over 5.6 thousand stores that are deployed with our POS. So we're seeing great success, particularly in retail. Now we're going to kind of shift from that relatively business-focused set of statistics to the totally geeky set of things that only we could care about, but I think it does sort of give you an idea of kind of the scale of the service that we're running. So for production primary databases for our customers, we're managing 4.2 petabytes of storage. If you consider the replicas and the additional disaster recovery databases, as well as things like the financial data warehouse that's behind it, it's over 17 petabytes of storage across all the databases. And then this number that everybody cares about is in the last 30 days, over 550 billion CRUD operations. So CRUD, we've descended way down into the weeds, but CRUD is create, read, update, delete. It's basically 550 billion database transactions processed across our service, F&O, in the last 30 days. And obviously with the growth numbers, that number just keeps going up. And I didn't check this since the last time I've done the presentation, so it's probably actually low at this point. But it's just a phenomenal amount of scale that is running through the service on a daily basis. So those results that are sort of nibbling around the edges of what I'd really love to say, which is how many customers, but I can't. Those are also reflected in some pretty strong results from the analysts. So this is Gartner's ProductCentric MidMarket ERP. And the thing that we like in this picture is that Dynamics 365 is the furthest dot to the right. So the way the Gartner chart works is moving to the right is about vision and strategy. And so we spend time with the Gartner team, and what it really means is they really believe in the model that we have. They believe in what we're doing and the technology that we've delivered. And a huge part of it is something we'll talk about as we go through this session, not just Dynamics 365, but the combination of all the assets that Microsoft brings to the table, from Azure all the way up through Dynamics and beyond with the Power Platform and mixed reality. The part that we just missed was you really want to be over that line and up into the upper right to their visionary quadrant. We're completely convinced, and we've spent a lot of time with them recently, that based on what we're doing with the product, we belong there. And it is a distinct goal for us to get there in this year, in their next survey. Gartner may be the first of these studies that everybody looks at, but we've got a number of analysts that track our work. I spent some time with a couple in the last week, but Nucleus Research puts us in their sort of upper right, as well as IDC. And so we're really happy kind of with the recognition amongst the analysts of what the product is delivering and what the capability is. So kind of what are the things that are driving that confidence in the analysts, in our strategy, in our vision, and the success with customers? As I said, there's way too much to talk about in a short session, but I'm going to go through a couple of the workloads and focus really on the things that I think are game-changing innovations that we've delivered. And so we'll start with supply chain, kind of looking at planning, logistics, asset management, and then manufacturing. So starting in planning, the core planning process, or MRP or DRP, is sort of, that is the heart of why people put in an operations system. And it's also, from a performance and scale point of view, probably the most strenuous thing for the system to execute. And that's not just a Dynamics thing, that's every ERP system in the industry. And so, for most of our customers, that's something that they run overnight. It's something that takes hours. That whole idea of finding a window of hours overnight kind of goes out the window if you're global. And it really puts an enormous stress on the system. We see kind of all of our meters go spike as people turn on their planning run as they get to their overnight hours. So what we did, and what we're previewing with great success with a number of customers now, is we introduced a new planning service that runs as a separate microservice, separate from Dynamics 365, but connected, and does that planning run entirely in memory. And so it accomplishes a number of things. First, it takes all of that stress off of the Dynamics 365 system. So you can do it whenever you want. You can do it during the middle of the day. If you get an order from a large customer that's not in the forecast and you want to replan, you can go do it. The second thing is, it's not hours anymore, it's minutes. And so again, that makes it far more practical to go plan on demand. And so we've taken all the stress off the system. We've delivered a much quicker result that actually can let people change the process. And we're going to build on that and enable things like simulations and kind of things that people have really been looking for. What if I make these assumptions? What would my plan look like? And the other thing about this that I love is it's a great demonstration of how we've built the muscle to introduce real big innovation in a non-disruptive way. So we left the old way to do planning in the system, and a customer that wants to try this, and an admin user can go into the feature activation dashboard and simply fill in a connection string and flip a switch, and they can do their next planning run using the in-memory service. And so we were able to introduce a total re-architecting of this very core process, done in a way that really takes advantage of cloud, and do it in a completely non-disruptive way to our customers. So it's one of the new innovations that we're super proud of, and I kind of really think it's kind of moves our planning to the next level. Trade and logistics, two different things that I'll talk about here. One, similarly, we've introduced a new microservice, and we're working again with one very large customer to prove this out. But it's in preview with them now. We're having great results. And the idea of this inventory service is it allows you to manage in a scale-out way across a very large number of warehouses or retail outlets on-hand inventory. And it's got a super simple API that's highly performant so that if a website needs to know how much stock do I have of this SKU in this location, it's a far simpler thing, and it's not, again, it's not hitting the core transaction system. And so scale out, less demands on D365 core, and a super simple programming interface. Again, really kind of transforms a modern thing that people need to do, which is grab that on-hand inventory at every location and report that. Secondly, advanced warehouse capabilities. We acquired a set of IP from one of our strong ISVs in the warehouse space. We acquired it last year, and then we've turned around and kind of built all of that capability into the standard product and shipped that. So we really moved our warehouse management capabilities up to the next level as well. Similarly, on asset management, this was something 3 or 4 years ago that a small number of customers would go out and acquire an asset management solution from one of our ISVs. For a number of reasons, we started to see the frequency with which customers were implementing asset management go up in a big way. And so last year we went out and we acquired the IP from one of our Dynamics ISVs, who built the solution for Dynamics. And we've turned it around and shipped it. It's now in general availability as part of the core product. And we'll see that in a little bit. The next piece, and this is, I think, a really exciting innovation, is our kind of offering in Connected Factory. So this is taking the idea of bringing IoT sensors into the factory floor, putting them on the production machines, using them to count production so people don't have to sit there and do that manually, but also putting it on the machines in order to read sensor values and maybe detect that I've got a quality problem, maybe I have an equipment problem, that maybe a machine is starting to vibrate or starting to use too much power, and I should now preempt a problem and schedule maintenance around that. And so this idea of a connected factory that puts sensors on the floor on machines and actually ties that all the way back into Dynamics and puts the production supervisor in complete control of what's going on. Again, next level step for our manufacturing solution. Customer that creates delicious snacks, and I guess this would be the moment where I should have a big box of them on stage, and I apologize for that, but Mayans is using a combination of IoT and Dynamics 365 for production. So we're going to take a look at a little bit of a video from Mayans, and then Kevin will come up and demo for us.
The experience that the consumer has to be supreme, and you have to deliver it consistently. Dynamics 365 gives us confidence that we can make great choices, great decisions in creating an amazing product.
Because the minute you have that one-off experience of the salt is a little bit low or the spice is a bit too high or low, it's a competitive environment. You'll just choose another product.
If there's too much moisture, it can make it a bad experience. If there's not enough, it'll go stale and dry out. So just getting it right is quite scientific and needs to be exact. At Magins, we've really tried to take away the human testing and look to IoT intelligence to do that more consistently and more accurately. We have a system now that can look into the product in real time, which helps us control how big the problem is or understand where it started. People feel so empowered if they can fix the problem themselves. Giving them the data quickly helps them actually fix problems before they become bigger problems. The real benefit of IoT intelligence is being able to get the best person in your organisation to address the issue that needs to be addressed. If you give good people the right information at the right time, they can do incredible things. The industry has always been about efficiency. Time is money. It's not just about producing whatever you produce faster. It's about how information flows through your whole business faster that will really give you competitive advantage.
We're a simple business. We make stuff and we sell stuff, but everything in between is so important to get right.
A lot of times when people eat our snack, they tell us that, oh, you take us in this little journey, you know? It's great, we love it. And that's the type of emotion we want to get with a customer. Dynamics 365 allows you to create that journey over and over again.
Great. So welcome Kevin Horlock, who's going to show us the Mayan system in real life. There we go.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. So that's a great video that kind of takes us through a lot of the benefits of how they've really brought together the connected factory. But if I then start to think about what are the component parts that actually make up the solution that they've got in play, there's a host of areas of what they're using today and where they can actually go further forwards as well. So, for instance, Mike was talking earlier about the IoT sensors and how they can be leveraged in their shop floor environment when they're kind of bringing the magic into their chips. But the reality is that actually breaks down into scenarios such as, you know, are there any delays? What's the salt content that might be in the quality of those chips? Through to fundamentally, has there been an actual stoppage in production? And one of the things that we've helped them with is actually simplify how they connect everything together. So for instance, we've got a simplified wizard that takes those IoT sensors and the message content that goes with that, and we then connected those directly through to business resources, such as, in my case, an IoT sensor is now connected through to a chip mixer. And then on top of that, we've then given time to that local machine operator to perhaps clear a blockage or reset the machine before we need to perhaps start to escalate up to our production supervisor that is in complete control. And if it does need to go up to our production supervisor, they've got the workspace currently in play that is kind of giving them all their notifications and their feeds, and they've got the full picture of everything going on. But now we've extended it so that when they look at these notifications that have come up to them as individuals, they can explore the detail, and if it's appropriate to, they can go that a little bit deeper and explore, is there any kind of time series information that we can identify with that perhaps over a period of time, in my case, my machine is completely stopped, so I've got nothing to show you. But the machine has stopped, but if it hadn't and it was showing a delay, there might be a peak and a trough that we could identify based on the type of product being produced. In tandem to all this going on, we heard about planning optimization as well. So planning optimization is great in this situation when my machine has completely stopped. I'm going to need to take this resource out of my routing. I can use that planning optimization to quickly replan and get production up and running at the same time. At the same time also is the fact that we've got to rush a technician to that machine. Now, as a production supervisor, I've got the opportunity to go and, in effect, create a work order in the new asset management and get someone scheduled straight away. But I also have flow, and I've also got business events within. I was coming to that because as I come to this, as of today, it's Power Automate. And Power Automate is where we can automate that business process that we have taken as an event of a notification from this IoT machine going down, in effect, and we can take that event from perhaps an alert, perhaps a particular business event that's occurring. We can pass out the body of that message because we pass the complete schema across, and then we can build out quite a complicated, if need be, condition that actually can then go back and generate a maintenance request back into the new asset management capability that we have. And you heard earlier from Mike that the asset management capability is helping companies like Magians and others to start being proactive with their maintenance and try and reduce those kind of maintenance plans and those overheads that are occurring, but also helps them in terms of how they manage their individual technicians, which is great when you start to bring it all together. And then you start to look for those sort of actionable insights that we're after all the time from data, because now we haven't got just traditional sort of records or transactional data. We've also got all that telemetry coming across from those IoT notifications that are all being put together for us. So we can look at our data in a number of different manners. And here I've just brought up a Power BI dashboard that's embedded within my asset management, workspace for maintenance requests. And here I can start to look at it from the usual sort of things about, you know, the visualizations. But for me, what's key is what's in the bottom right-hand corner, where we're starting to give you that, did you know? Starting to drive that insight directly to us from our data. So we can start to source, well, okay, we've got an issue that's being highlighted around hydraulics, or we've got an issue with a key person that's being indicated. Well, that can drive us to change our maintenance plans, be proactive, perhaps introduce a new staff or do some additional cross-training of our technicians. It kind of all brings everything together for us. So that's quite a nice kind of summary of how Magians is kind of working today and how they can start to leverage the content that is kind of coming from the rest of the supply chain management capabilities. So I'll pause there and pass back to Mike. Yeah.
Great. So, I think the core thing that we saw there is a set of capability that takes advantage of being connected. So the sensors on the floor are now connected all the way up to Dynamics 365. The ability to use intelligence on top of that to determine, what is something that needs action, and that allows them to then run their operation in a more optimal fashion. Kevin mentioned one thing when he was showing you the thing that used to be Flow that's now Power Automate, and he said kind of quickly that I can use a business event to trigger that. Business events are another sort of key area that we've innovated on in the last few months with Dynamics 365. So generally, when you are trying to have something happen in one system because of something that happened in another, a lot of times what people wind up having to do is they write something that wakes up every few minutes and goes and issues a query and says, did something interesting happen? And most of the time that thing is waking up and actually finding nothing to do, but that's a lot of overhead on the system. And you balance that by saying, well, how often should it wake up? The downside of that is if you make it wake up less, then you have latency between things happening and reacting to them. The cool thing about business events is these are kind of important business events. So it's not just that a piece of data got written. It's not just a simple trigger, but it's something more interesting, like an order shipped or a machine had an error. That we actually can, inside Dynamics 365, recognize that significant event has occurred, and then we raise that event to somebody that's subscribed to it. So we take away that need to have things waking up and polling us and asking, did anything interesting happen? When the interesting thing happens, we publish an event out to the Azure event mechanism, and then we can handle subscribers against that. So it's a real step forward in terms of making Dynamics behave in a great way as part of an integrated system with other things. Okay, Kevin's going to show us some other capabilities. Before he does, I just want to set one of them up, and that's we've introduced a whole set of end user experience enhancements, and this is something we spend a ton of time listening to the feedback we get from customers and what they need to do in order to get users to be productive, and we've delivered a number of the things that were really at the top of that list. Now somebody's gone and done some amazing work with this slide, which we're going to blow right through because Kevin's going to show you for real. But kind of the core things are, we introduced the way for people to take a form or a view in the product and simplify it by maybe getting rid of the things that don't make sense in their environment. And then you can actually attach those views to not to a user, but you can also attach these views to a role, and then anytime you add users in that role, they will automatically get that adjusted view. Secondly, we get a ton of feedback that led us to do a bunch of work on the grids that you see throughout the system with data, and introducing some really cool capabilities around being able to reorder columns more easily, add totals, add grouping, and always high on the list is improve the speed at which we're scaling across lots of data. And then finally, we talked about the Power BI embedded. We've had that for some time, but we've done a bunch of work to improve that experience and to light up some new capabilities like the Power BI widgets that actually have kind of AI trend detection and anomaly detection built into them, and allow more in terms of users acting against that data. So Kevin's going to show us that, and then he's going to show us another area that I'm really excited about, which is he's going to use a customer called Farmlands. And the focus here is around better integration and better interoperability between things like 365 for sales and 365 finance and operations. So really kind of changing the game in terms of the way data flows back and forth between them. So with that, Kevin?
Cool. Thank you. So all this usability is kind of key about how we interact with our data, and that's an underpinning theme here. And I'm going to start with Dynamics 365 for sales for the farmlands. And they had a particular challenge. They had a host of their sales associates spanning their country.
But this should demonstrate the integration. Kevin is the F&O demo guy. The fact that he's going to start in 365 for sales, we're on whole new ground here. So
this is true. I'm not in my comfort zone. So these sales associates out there in the field were being impacted because they were working on a separate system to the system that was in the back office that the buyers were using. So they were going through all those synchronization challenges that I'm sure we've all experienced at some point. Leveraging the dual rights capability now, they've started to take a benefit from this ability to say, okay, as a sales associate like Kevin, I can now, in Dynamics 365 for sales, start to add in new customer records on the fly in a store environment. But I can also take advantage of some of the capabilities that are in the back office as well. For instance, we're aware that we have this global address book capability where we can enable it so that it can be available to Dynamics 365 for sales through dual rights. Gosh, that's a mouthful to say. When I give you an example here of using a zip code that is all the nines, I know on purpose that this is invalid. And it's going to come back and tell me that actually, you're absolutely right, that is an invalid code. And it's not until I come back and change that to a zip code that is actually correct and click save, then as a sales associate, I can continue knowing I'm actually ensuring the validity and correctness of my data. Because then, perhaps in the back office environment, back to my comfort zone, I could be a credit control manager, and I'm now looking for that customer, or I'm looking for lists of customers that have been generated for us. So Amber Farms is the customer that I just generated in sales. It's now available for me, so I can now go through the credit management and apply the rules that might be appropriate to, in fact, creating this customer fully. And in the case of farmlands here, they actually also use loyalty cards as well for store purchases, so I could be associating in that sense as well. But in tandem to all this, we also have the buyers that are continuously adding. It's quite a seasonal business. They're continuously adding content to their catalog. And in my case, I'm going to add some wire mesh, and I've just put a few fields in here for me to help me along. And I'm going to put a sales price in there. And when I click OK, it's, as we know, it's going to go through the motion of, in effect, applying the defaults that are appropriate when I go and create a new product in the back office. But via the dual rights, it will then start to become available to the new sales associates out in the store environments. So whilst the buyers are still kind of embellishing the content for publication, those products are now available to those sales associates. So they can, in the background, start to create new sales quotations, new sales orders for the customer that we've just created, for the product that we've just created. So I think I was a wire mesh order. Put that through. I want to apply that across to the default dashboard, default price list. I'm having to say this to myself because obviously I'm not overly familiar with this environment. And I've confirmed that I'm going back to my Amber Farms, which I created earlier and is incomplete. And when I click the save, it now means I can start to add individual product lines to this order as well. So I can start to put in a W, and it will start to go off and find my wire mesh. And the wire mesh that I created in the back office as a buyer, you can see is immediately available for me. So that usability of historically two systems side by side being batch orientated in terms of updates, using that dual rights is pretty much instantaneously updated. So that's a great usability capability there. But if I think about some of the other capabilities that we've got going on here as well, I'm going to just start briefly from the feature management, because I just want to highlight how easy and controllable this is, because you've got the enable dates, when it can be enabled, when I can schedule something, and I'm actually purely really interested in this new grid control. And in my case, I'm just going to enable this and just refresh my browser very briefly. And that'll in effect enable and apply some changes for me that I could start to show you, because in my case...
So that's a really key point. So that as we're pushing out content, it's great for us to go do that, but customers are not always ready to have that go rolled out to their business. So when we do something that's actually going to change the experience for a user, it's generally off by default. You've got this new feature activation dashboard that you can go in and you can go turn that on. You can turn it on obviously first in your sandbox environment and then turn it on in production. And so this is really kind of a maturing of our ability to engineer on a continuous basis and not break people. So
totally. Very good point. I'm a simple user of our applications. I'm just an individual that will dip in on the odd occasion. So when I'm being presented with content like I'm now being presented, a list of customers, I'm often going to have information that is completely irrelevant to my individual role. Or I might be having many hats and I need different views of data. And this is where we can start to take advantage of the views that's at the top here. And in my case, I've put a little Kevin shortlist on. And immediately you can see it's compressed down, because what I've got in effect gone through and done is I've taken out all the individual columns that I don't need to see as an individual, and I've just brought it down to my list. But in tandem with that, we can apply that across the board. So if I needed to, I could focus on a great big list of transactions. Maybe I could perhaps pick on some sales orders here. And if I needed to, from a sales orders perspective, we start to have a lot of columns of data again. Totally understandable, but different industries, different needs. But we've also got the opportunity to kind of rearrange our content appropriately as well. And I'm just messing about and changing the sequence of what you're seeing on screen, which is a lot simpler to what we've traditionally been able to do. And I can change this particular view of data again and save it and keep it. And one of the things I didn't highlight a moment ago is that whenever I go to do this, I can pin whatever view that I've created. I can save it, give it a name, and I can pin it as a default that I can keep coming back to and using. But where I think this really comes into its own is when you look at it from a transaction view. We have a lot of information that we need to manage against a transaction line. And if we're interested in particular units of measure, like a computer screen, we're not going to be so interested in a catch weight. That was meant to be a joke, but okay. But you get the essence that you've got an awful lot of content in here. And I'm just going to move the cursor along here, and you can see there's a lot of content. I don't need this information for my individual role. Others will, I don't. But from my perspective, if I then narrow that down to a short list again that's Kevin's, I can actually go this little bit further as well, because I can actually do a right mouse on the side here, and I can put a total on that column as well. And immediately I've added a little bit of efficiency to my life, because these may be little activities that I would have perhaps pushed out to an Excel and done a quick total as an individual. I don't need to do that kind of activity anymore. I can do a quick total on my transaction, or on my list of transactions, or on my list of, in my case, customers or vendors. So this kind of usability aspect is also kind of applied when we think of it from how we're interacting with Power BI as well. So Power BI is kind of fully embedded within our experience now. And it's actually been improved in terms of how we manage and interact. So up until quite recently, if you wanted to go and change any of our standard sort of dashboards that we provide, you didn't have that ability directly. But now, if you have gone through the motions of creating your own individual dashboards, you can go and create your own and apply them, selecting them, and in effect replacing the default ones that we provide. But equally, quite often it can be a case that the dashboards that we are providing are quite perhaps close to what you need, or you might just not like the visualizations. Well, by going into edit mode, because I have the privileges to do so, means I'm now really working as if I'm in powerbi.com. I can now modify my visualizations on the right. I can change the field sequences. I can add additional tabs in. And if I needed to, because I just don't like this one here on the left, I can go through the whole process of changing that visualization into something completely different. saving it back, and then making it available for everybody. So that kind of brings together all the kind of usability and capabilities that we've got going on there. So I'm going to pass it back to Mike.
Thanks. So I did start my ERP history in process manufacturing, so I did get Kevin's catch-weight joke. The other thing that I kind of wanted to spend 2 seconds on was just talk a little bit about dual write. So what you saw was that basically as we're writing data in F&O, if it's set up for dual write, we're writing it at that data at the same time into the common data service or sales, for example. And similarly, if I'm writing something in sales, I'm writing it at the same time. And so there's not latency between the two. And in addition, you also saw that all the validation and editing that's done on one side now applies to the combined transaction. So if there's a problem on either side, it's going to get stopped. And so that's a huge step forward. It's actually just one of several really important capabilities that have been introduced that we're starting to roll out that kind of really improve that ability to use the Dynamics 365 workloads together. Okay, another place where we've made a ton of progress is in the space around core HR and talent. And so similar to some of the things that I talked about in supply chain, we've actually gone out to our ISV base and looked at the enhancements that people were building to our core HR that were the most popular, and we've actually acquired IP rights from a number of our ISVs, and we're in the process of building that into the core so that we can quickly turn these around and make that full set of advanced capabilities available, as well as new development that we're doing in the core areas where we just hear the feedback that the product needs to get stronger. So this is a place where it's really important that we kind of move this to the next level, and you're starting to see the investment that's really going to make that happen. One of the places where, as I said earlier, we've got tremendous success with the product commercially is also a place where we've introduced a ton of innovation, and that's around 365 in retail. So the first thing that we did is we changed it. We don't talk about retail anymore. We talk about commerce. And there's a ton of capability in the core that's just been lit up that there just isn't room for on the slide. But for example, in the last 6 months, we introduced the Retail Cloud Scale Unit. So again, that's a separate service that's scale out that can actually isolate the point of sale workload that's going on in the stores from the core Dynamics service. So for example, if somebody is doing MRP the old way on Dynamics, the stores would be unaffected. If it's finance period close that's going on, the stores are unaffected. If I'm actually doing maintenance and servicing the core Dynamics, then with that cloud scale unit, the stores continue to run unaffected. And so that's a huge step forward. It also gives us great scale advantages because I can have those cloud scale units in different data centers around the globe close to my stores. And we've had great results with moving customers that weren't using it to start taking advantage of the cloud scale unit. We've also introduced, and I'll talk in a few minutes more about our regression suite automation testing capabilities. We've extended that now to support the cloud POS, so we can do the regression testing against POS. And we've introduced our first-party payment service. So that was always an area where people struggled getting connected between the point of sale and their payment provider. And so we decided to go invest in that. We developed a solution that connects to the Adyen network, and we're having great results with that globally. But maybe the biggest change is the little circle in the upper left up there, which is, for our retail customers, that omni-channel and omni-channel experience is the core thing that they're after. I want to be able to interact with my customer in the same way, whether they come into my store or whether they go to my website or whether they call my call center. And we had a great solution for call center. We had a great solution for the physical stores, but we always had to go elsewhere to partners and integration in order to find that e-commerce site. So last month, we introduced and announced our e-commerce capability for Dynamics 365 Commerce. And this is something that was derived from the e-commerce that was built to run Microsoft's e-commerce. So it runs the website for the Microsoft stores, but it also powers the transactions that get done when people are buying things in-game in Xbox. So this is an incredibly powerful, scalable commerce engine that is now part of Dynamics, and that's just a huge step forward for us. The other thing is around each of those core channels, we've introduced intelligence solutions that kind of take the power of data and intelligence to give us new capability for each of those channels. So around digital fraud protection, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. We also announced last month the work that we're doing around connected store for the physical store. So that's the idea of putting sensors in the physical store that can understand where customers are flowing through the store, where are they spending their time. If you think about what is kind of the magic in e-commerce, it's that retailer's ability to understand what are you looking at, where are you spending your time, what are you clicking on. The connected store is the equivalent of that brought to the physical store. And then finally, if you saw the keynote this morning, you saw Charles demonstrate the virtual agent technology. Bringing that virtual agent to extend the call center is a super powerful thing. Obviously, our retail customers get the benefit of connecting back to the other core Dynamics projects. So for example, full supply chain, warehouse management, and procurement, as well as tying to the D365 marketing, as well as customer insights. Some of the core things that are super interesting about this offer, number one, it's scalable. It's built on Azure. And as we get into November and we sort of approach that magical moment of Black Friday for retailers in the US, the ability to not have to worry about, am I going to be able to scale my retail system? With the Cloud Scale Unit and with the e-commerce engine, we have the ability to respond to that. Second thing, obviously, we spend a ton of our effort every day on both the issue of security, but also accessibility and making sure that the system is compliant but available to all users. And then finally, this is the technology that was built to run commerce at Microsoft. We are in the process of taking the Dynamics stores and the Microsoft stores and the Microsoft e-commerce websites, and those will get redeployed on top of the Dynamics product version. So the technology for the e-commerce came from what was built for the stores. We've turned it into a Dynamics product. We're now going back around and we're going to redeploy Microsoft on the Dynamics version. If you look at the calendar and recognize we just did a Surface launch and Black Friday's around the corner, that will not be happening before the holidays because we kind of don't touch anything now. But that work is in flight, and we'll start to see that next year as well as the stores. That ability to turn around and to be able to tell our customers that we're running on the same thing in our environment is a huge step. Fraud protection. So this is a really cool offering. Again, it was built to power commerce at Microsoft, and it's got some super interesting capabilities. So it's basically using AI and a data network that we've set up with card providers and merchants to inform better decisions about whether you should or should not accept an electronic transaction. And so, everybody sees fraud protection, and the focus immediately is on stopping fraudulent transactions, and that's absolutely true. And when you stop a fraudulent transaction, you prevent a whole bunch of operational cleanup that a customer has to go through if they've been defrauded. But maybe just as importantly, the system has the ability to tell somebody when a transaction's in the gray area that this is one you should accept. So it gets rid of sort of unnecessary rejects. And so that has two benefits. One is it's business that they would have lost that they're able to get. And second is it gives a smoother experience, a more seamless experience to their customers. So this is a very powerful new capability we're really excited about. And it's tied directly to the retail and commerce offerings.
Chateau Ste. Michelle Winery.
around retail and commerce. One of our first customers that's live with the new e-commerce capability is Chateau Saint Michel Winery, specifically the Col Solare Winery in Washington State. I guess this is the one I really should have brought samples for. And I am a customer, so it was not outside the realm of possibility. But Chateau Saint Michel is one of the is probably the largest winery in Washington State. And Col Solare is a beautiful Cabernet that they make actually in partnership with the Antinori family in Italy. So it's a high-end product for them. And they are live on their website. And I did buy some this afternoon. I was going to go demo it live, but and I had to buy it in order to make sure everything was working. So they've started with the Col Solare brand on the new 365 e-commerce. They're live, and they're deploying it in their physical tasting center using the POS and the mobile device, and their plan is to roll it out across everything. So let's hear from
Chateau
them.
Saint Michel Wineries wants to build a comprehensive commerce platform that knits together 14 distinct brands, multiple sales channels including wholesale, online, and retail. Dynamics 365 Commerce helps ensure a unified view of products across physical and digital storefronts, and delivers friction-free shopping experiences for customers. Chateau Saint Michel is starting their transformation with one of their top brands, Col Solare. They need to transform their existing web page to deliver exceptional experiences for customers. Merchandisers are able to create and enrich the product pages and personalize customer experience with integrated capabilities like ratings and reviews, or bring relevant media like tasting notes, complimentary foods, awards, and published reviews from external sources. They're also able to preview the product prior to publishing to ensure it aligns with brand and company standards. Customers like Adriana that visit the Col Solare site are able to sign in and be greeted with a personalized page based on their preferences and loyalty status. Using intelligent and immersive search powered by Bing, Adriana can also quickly see wines she might be interested in. Predictive search can also display all relevant content affiliated with the results within the search bar. She can filter products based on all relevant attributes along with existing customer ratings and reviews. Adriana can also see all the rich content previously added along with the AI-driven recommendations based on shopper behavior both in-store and online. Adriana can find a store near her and proceed to add the wine to her cart and choose from a range of smart pay solutions. Leveraging AI-driven fraud protection capabilities, or DFP, her experience is seamless and friendly, while Chateau Saint Michel's operations are optimized and protected against fraud. Once completed, she receives a confirmation of purchase sent directly to her email with all relevant details available. Dynamics 365 Commerce allows Chateau Saint Michel to offer seamless experiences to customers that choose to buy online and pick up in-store. A store associate is notified of Adriana's purchase and can pick, pack, and get the order ready using a mobile device and the Dynamics 365 Commerce app. As the data is updated in real time, Adriana is automatically notified that her order is ready for collection. When arriving in store, the associate can log into the Dynamics 365 app and bring up Adriana's details and see a comprehensive view of her profile including previous purchases, loyalty status, and more. Using customer insights integrated to commerce, the sales agent is also able to see additional rich information including segments and lifetime value. He's able to suggest another wine based on a personalized recommendation. The receipt is emailed to her with rich content along with brand and marketing aligned messaging through Dynamics 365 Marketing. By unifying the experience across all channels, Chateau Saint Michel can derive rich information about business, customers, and product performance. Using analytics delivered through Power BI, a manager can review performance based on sales KPIs, category, channels, and look at trends across the product lifecycle to make better informed decisions. By surfacing relevant information, Chateau Saint Michel can ultimately improve business processes and deliver exceptional experiences for their customers.
Great. So, for the first time, we're able to deliver sort of every aspect of what they need to do, both in the tasting room store as well as the online site. What you saw in the building of that site is another focus area for us. You keep hearing us talk about no-code and low-code, but the idea that the marketing people can adjust the content for the website is a really powerful part of the offering. And you saw how it was used together with the fraud prevention as well as with customer insights in Power BI. Okay, so just wrapping up, one of the things that you would have heard about this morning in Satya's keynote was a significant amount of progress and investment around our data platform. And a core part of that is Azure Data Lake Generation 2. And super fast, super scalable, able to handle relational data as well as other types, secure, and a much more cost-effective way for customers to handle large amounts of data. So what we're doing, and again, these are in active previews, there were a ton of announcements this morning around capabilities related to the data lake, is we're building the ability to have Dynamics 365 maintaining a constant near real-time update from the data in Dynamics into the data lake. So this is an area where customers have all struggled as to sort of how do I get that data warehouse? How do I get it refreshed? When should I do it? Do I want to bring my own database, or do I want to use Entity Store? We're really accomplishing both of those things, and through some innovation that we've done, that the data lake team has done, and the SQL team has done, it's all done in near real time without those sort of big painful batch update drops. So I apologize for the little green circle that's going to maybe cause problems for people, but it's supposed to express that there's a consistent real-time update. The other cool thing about the data lake is I can bring other data in there, not just Dynamics. So this is where Azure IoT sensors can drop their data, and because it's a data lake, that it can handle that kind of feed. As well as I've got connectors and gateways, and there are hundreds of pre-built connectors out there to get data from other systems, whether that's a SharePoint list or another SQL database or Salesforce or SAP. I've got connectors and gateways to go bring that stuff in. And there's a custom gateway development kit so that I can actually maybe build one to a legacy system that a customer has. So I can now bring all that data together in one place. And what we do on top of that is everything points at that. So the Power BI points at the data lake in order to drive analytics. Azure ML, for all the places where we're building machine learning and intelligence into the products, is pointing at that data lake. AI Builder, which was talked about today, which is the thing that lets a business user, maybe and not an AI expert, maybe take one of the models that's out there and add additional data signals to it and retrain that model. All of those work against the data lake, and then we take the insights that we get from that and we surface them right back inside Dynamics. So the Dynamics user doesn't have to go someplace else to see a visualization. The Power BI is embedded. They don't need to go someplace else to see the benefits of an AI insight. So you probably can't tell because of the size of the font on that screen, but this is an invoice list, an AR invoice list, and there's a new column there that's got a red circle in this case for most of these invoices, as well as a percentage. That's a risk prediction we're making on what we think the likelihood of that invoice not getting paid is. And so the business user sees that insight as if all this plumbing wasn't there. It's just part of their experience. And we'll be doing more and more, but all built around this same seamless data platform. And so this is a kind of really exciting development that's going on right now around D365. The final thing to talk about is kind of our ongoing investment and evolution around our one version process. And so this is the way in which we drive those continuous updates. And so we are delivering D365 Finance and Operations as a SaaS workload where we're driving continuous innovation. If you look in April and October, you'll see 2 new documents. You'll see a new document each time that talks about what's coming. We go through a safe deployment process. So there's about 12 weeks between when we finish something and when it finally makes it into the GA systems. So as we update every, 8 months out of the 12 during the year, we're going through a series of rings from internal deployment to partner early access to customer first deployment and then to GA. And at each step, we're measuring telemetry and we're looking at quality in order to understand that software is ready for the next step. And it's really just about eliminating regressions from our environment, making sure that when we deploy to live customers, we're not disrupting anything. we've added to this sort of model that people have for cloud software the best practices of enterprise application lifecycle management. We're doing their ERP software. It's not cool to come in on Monday and find out that the software has changed, right? I mean, it's people need to manage that process if you're dealing with this kind of workload. And so we define dev, test, and production instances so people can look at the software first in their dev environment, promote it to test, promote it to prod, whether that's an update that we've done or something that they've done through their configuration or extensions. We give control over when should that update hit my production environment. If I've signed off on it, Sunday night at 3 a.m. is when I want that to happen, and I get control of that. And then we've produced this regression suite automation tool, which builds on the task recorder, so to let people record regression tests and then be able to play those back against the test versions. And if they want, give those regression suites to us so that we can actually run them in those internal rings as part of our validation. And so this is an incredibly powerful tool for building regression tests against the running software with your customizations, with your data, with your configuration. We're seeing great uptake. We need to see more. This really is absolutely key to being part of the way people live with continuous evolution for something as important to ERP. It's not something where you need to do a big bang project to take advantage of it. Every time you're looking at something, just build the regression suite for that next function and that next function, and build up that coverage over time so that you have end-to-end coverage of what you're doing. And then finally, and we've talked about it before, this idea that when we do something new that might be visible to users, it's off by default, and you have the ability through this admin feature control dashboard to turn on and turn off the things that are new that you're ready for in your environment. And kind of one of the coolest things for us is all this stuff that we tell our customers about using data and intelligence to empower you to make better decisions. We're actually doing the same thing. And so we leverage the telemetry every day that comes out of the system to understand what parts of the system are performing, what things are not, what do we need to change, where do we have to put out guidance. In fact, I worked on an issue with a customer just last week where that telemetry pointed us at what we needed to do. It would have been one of these things in the past where you had to ask the customer could you please reproduce that? We'll run a trace, we'll figure it out. This way we were actually able to look at the telemetry, understand the issue, and then drive effectively in real time the engineering change that we needed. And so it really is combining this best of the cloud and best of SaaS with best practice for enterprise application lifecycle management. If there's one thing that you leave Orlando with besides maybe some Mickey Mouse ears, I think that the thing that is sort of most important for me about Dynamics 365 applications is it's not just the applications on their own. But it is the level of innovation that we're putting to work that starts with the power of the Azure cloud, that adds the data platform innovation, things like the data lake that I showed you together with that trickle feed out of SQL. That is the Power Platform on top of that. It's both Dynamics and Office. It's the cool mixed reality things. And it's the power of our ecosystem with all the ISV solutions and partner offerings that surface in AppSource. And this is what Dynamics 365 represents, and we think it's this picture that really makes us different from everybody else. We're incredibly proud of the cool things we do in the app, and we'll continue to do that, but I think this whole picture is a pretty important view. So with that, I'll wrap up and let you off to your whatever happy hour it is. Please go ahead and fill out the evals when you get a chance. The deck and recordings will be available up at the Microsoft Ignite site. And definitely, if you didn't hear me emphasize it before, go look at the release notes, go look at the blog, join our communities, and we'll make our announcements about the spring release at the Business Applications Summit next year. So go ahead and sign up for that as well. So with that, thank you very much.